This is WFYI News Now. It's August 19th, and I'm Drew Daudelin. On today's show, advocates say many Medicaid members are confused about how their coverage has been affected by a recent court ruling. Educator feedback on Indiana Department of Education's new Diploma draft is mostly positive, and Democratic gubernatorial candidate Jennifer McCormick unveiled her new tax relief plan.
We've heard from so many of our local communities that they're tight. They can't afford to take a lot of hits.
Those stories coming up, but first, the Indiana Department of Education announced the finalists for Indiana Teacher of the Year, and several of the finalists come from Marion County. From WFYI's Education Desk, Sydney Dauphiné has more.
The 2025 Teacher of the Year nominees include educators from Mooresville Community Schools, Tippecanoe School Corporation, and Wayne Township Schools. The Indiana Teacher of the Year program has been honoring educators for over 60 years. School districts nominate their top teacher to the state, who then evaluates the selections to choose Teacher of the Year. Some of this year's nominees are Nicole Shadek from Purdue Polytechnic High School, Justin Allison from Wayne Township, and Graciela Miranda from Pike Township. The 2025 Teacher of the Year will be selected by a committee of State Department of Education staff, community and business leaders, and former Teachers of the Year. That selection will be announced this fall. I'm Sydney Dauphiné.
Advocates say many Medicaid members are confused about how their coverage has been affected by a ruling that vacated the federal approval of the Healthy Indiana Plan, or HIP. Indiana Public Broadcasting's Abigail Ruman reports the ruling highlighted several policies that act as barriers to coverage, including monthly payments required for the version of HIP with better coverage, HIP Plus.
The ruling means the state can't collect power account contributions or remove people from the program because of non-payment. The state said it will work with the insurance companies that facilitate the program to communicate with members that they do not have to make these payments. Tracy Hutchings-Getz is the Communications and Policy Director for the advocacy nonprofit Hoosier Action. She says advocates are concerned that members may receive letters with contradicting information.
No matter how they're messaging it, there has been a really long-standing problem with the way that those notices are written, as well as how slow the communication is.
Hutchings-Getz said members should carefully read any mail or notice from the state or their managed care entity. She also said community organizations like Hoosier Action are committed to keeping people covered by helping them navigate any confusion or questions they may have. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Abigail Ruman.
Several community organizations, including Hoosier Action, also signed on to a letter to the Indiana Family and Social Services Administration urging the agency to maintain HIP Plus coverage for all members, something it has done for the past 4 years. The Indiana Department of Education announced drastic changes to a controversial new diploma proposal last Wednesday based on community concerns. Indiana Public Broadcasting's Kirsten Adair reports it's still early in the process, but educator feedback on the new draft has been mostly positive so far.
Educators spent hours sharing their concerns about the proposed GPS and GPS Plus diplomas since they were revealed in March. The IDOE listened to that feedback and came up with a completely different plan. Bob Taylor is the executive director at Indiana Association of Public School Superintendents. He says the association is happy to endorse the new proposal.
The diploma requirements that have been established and were presented to us are requirements that not only meet the academic rigor that we expect from our Indiana high schools, but go beyond that rigor and include the individualized flexibility.
The Indiana Association of School Principals and some other educators also say they support the new proposal. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Kirsten Adair.
And for our final story today, Democratic gubernatorial candidate Jennifer McCormick unveiled a $600 million tax relief plan last week. It's aimed at helping address sharp spikes in property tax bills. Indiana Public Broadcasting's Brandon Smith reports the plan uses several proposals introduced in the General Assembly by lawmakers from both parties.
The biggest impact would come from increasing the exemptions Hoosiers can take on their income taxes. McCormick's plan would raise it from $1,000 to $2,500.
Since our wages aren't moving and our costs are going up, that there was a way for Hoosiers to capture more dollars to help offset what is happening with property taxes.
That change would cost the state $333 million a year in revenue and local governments $173 million. McCormick says one of her goals was to minimize the impact on local government budgets.
We've heard from so many of our local communities that they're tight. They can't afford to take a lot of hits.
Another part of the plan would provide homeowners with a tax credit if their property tax bill increases by 10% or more in a year. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Brandon Smith at the State House.
That's all for today's episode of WFYI News Now. Our podcast today was produced by Zach Bundy and myself, Drew Daudelin, with support from the news team at WFYI and public media journalists across the state. Our news director is Sarah Neal-Estes. Kendall Antron produced our music. If you liked today's episode, remember to subscribe and share, and follow WFYI on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube to check in on our newsroom throughout the day. Thanks for listening. We'll be back tomorrow.